It's time for everyone to panic. Yes, I would, Kent.
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening.
No. Wait.
Everybody stay calm. What's the procedure? What's the procedure? Stay calm.
The Panic Meter is presented by Dentech, protecting your teeth from fantasy stress, one matchup at a time. Again, the designations for the People's Panic Meter. We have no panic, some panic, total panic, and then the dreaded coping corner. And like I said, I think we might get some coping corner mentions here. Before we get into the submissions, I just want to shout out to everyone that sends in the submissions. We got a ton this week, many of which were concentrated around the same players. So if we don't read off your name, just know you were heard, you were listened to. We acknowledge you out there. But we got a lot of Bengals, we got a lot of Jags, we got a lot of Drake London. We're going to cover all of those players here, starting with the first submission. And shout out to Colby, who sends in this video on Chase Brown.
What's going on, guys? A lot of my teams to start the year are 1-2, and they're led in the backfield by Chase Brown. And I'm very concerned by Chase Brown. He had a terrible week 3. He's getting hit behind the line a ton, and I don't know what to do with him. He's like my only star RB. Am I going in the coping corner for this?
Colby, buddy, we appreciate the hell out of you for sending in the video. And we always love the videos, by the way, especially if you just really let it rip. We love it. But Chase Brown, Justin Boone, we were excited about Chase Brown heading into this season. What is the current panic level on Chase Brown after a 10 carry, 3 yard, 0.3 yards per carry game on Sunday?
I mean, it's got to be total panic. In my mind, it has to be total panic. I'm not willing to go coping corner. I'm beyond some panic at this point, but there is context to it, right? And I'm not going to sit here and try to, make a strong case for Brown or anything like that. But going into the season, we thought his situation was going to be a lot different, right? It's a good player, but a lot of players' fantasy outlooks are dependent on their situation, and his has changed massively in the first few weeks. And it's just that Joe Burrow injury. And now this offense is completely different than what we expected. And we talked about Jake Browning over the course of last week. I think we both think he's a competent backup. But we also talked about how hard the schedule was going to be for the first month. Mm-hmm. He had to go against the Vikings last week. We saw how that worked out. He's got the Broncos, the Lions, the Packers. Those are the next 3 coming up here. I don't think they're going to be able to move the ball very well against those teams, especially on the ground. So, yeah, you have to be very, very worried about Chase Brown. There is a caveat if we're going to look at the schedule, because eventually it does get a little easier. And Jake Browning, I think, will be able to move the ball like he did a couple years ago when he took over for Burrow. But, man, it's not very exciting right now when you're thinking about having Chase Brown on your team. And the fact that you're 1-2, like, that is actually lucky, despite the fact you took Chase Brown as high as you probably did.
I hate to say this to Colby and everybody else who sent in Chase Brown submissions, and I hate to say this to you, Justin Boone, but I kind of want to make a coping corner case here for Chase Brown.
Wow. Okay.
We're not. Let's not put it on the meter just yet. We're not going to say this for
Too late.
Yeah, I mean it's already on the screen. But like you mentioned the situation, and I think Chase Brown is a nice player. But he's not, Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley. He's not one of the best running backs in the league. I think we could probably sit here and name off like 15, maybe 20 running backs in the NFL that are better than Chase Brown. Maybe 20 is pushing it, but I don't think he is. I think he might be slightly above replacement level, sort of starting running back play. So really the bull case for Chase Brown was mostly around the fact that you were going to get elite workload in an elite offense. Well, the offense is not going to be elite without Joe Burrow, period, end of story. I'm not sure that the situation was going to be elite to begin with, because they were 31st in yards before contact on their running back runs. So it already wasn't shaping up to be like the situation that you might have wanted. And then this past week, obviously it was a weird game script. Maybe that has something to do with this. They got blown out by the Minnesota Vikings. By the way, I think they might get blown out here and there every now and again this season. But Chase Brown only had a 60.9% share of the running back touches. And you just kind of wonder if the coaching staff is starting to think like, you know what? Let's just throw something else out there and see what sticks, because what they have been doing with Chase Brown has not been working. So if he is like a 60% touch player or 65, shoot, I think even 70% touch player on this offense, I kind of think like there's just no shot he's going to return anything close to top 12 running back performance, which is what he was drafted to be. And he's going to be a guy that goes from set it and forget it, like that's what you were thinking you drafted, to a guy that every week you're kind of wondering if you throw him out in your flex and there's really no path to like what, like the coping corner, like Boone, this is your first year doing this, so just let me remind you what the coping corner means here. The coping corner basically means,
is what I've heard. Yeah.
You can come back from it. You can be pulled back from the coping corner if things dramatically change, and it's a group decision. This is a democracy here. But the coping corner basically means like we don't take submissions about the player anymore, because like it just is what it is. You're not gonna get what you thought here out of this player. And I kind of feel like Chase Brown's the perfect like example of that right now. Like, tell me how this changes for the rest of the fantasy season.
Well, I will say the argument against the volume would be that, and I didn't see an update on it today, but Samaje Perine did get hurt in that game. So I don't know who else is really coming for his touches, but if Samaje Perine misses any time, I don't think you're going to put Taj Brooks out there a significant amount, the rookie. So he would maybe go back to getting more work. And then the only other thing I could say is just when the schedule gets easier, Jake Browning returning to like some level of play like he had a couple of years ago when the offense was like passable down the stretch. And from week 7 on, it's the Steelers, the Jets, the Bears, and the Steelers again. He also gets the Patriots at one point later in the season. He gets the Dolphins in the fantasy playoffs. So I can see some games here where he does pop back up into like that fantasy RB2 top 20 kind of mix. You're never going to feel super confident about it. I think right now, like rest of season, I haven't done my trade value chart update yet, but rest of season, he's going to fall all the way down to like that RB25 range, like that high end RB3 range. Like that's where he is now, especially knowing that I'm expecting over the next 3 weeks, kind of what we just saw this weekend, where that offense is going to have a very hard time moving the ball. So yeah, that I'm willing to go total panic. I'm not quite on the coping corner yet, but we're on that borderline, and you make a pretty good case for it.
Okay, well, it has to be a group decision, so we're not going to go coping corner. Although everything you just said about your update for him in your trade value chart, that sounds an awful lot like a coping corner guy to me. I'm just gonna say that. But the only reason I'll stand down here is that I do think that I kind of want to give players like a 1 week pass after playing the Vikings defense. Like that's just like, I think this Bengals offense can maybe be more passable than it was last week. But yes, truly, this is a 1 week pass. I'm going to say this. I just said it's a democracy. It has to be a group decision, but this is a 1 week pass on the Chase Brown stuff. We get another week like that, I'm going to overrule you. I'm going to full coup this thing, and we're throwing him into the coping corner next week.
Think about what we said about this team last year, right? Or last week. And it was that Jamar Chase is probably going to be okay over the long term. He's going to get a lot of volume. I know the game this week wasn't great, but the Jamar Chase still going to be a decent fantasy starter for you. T. Higgins, we are super concerned about, and I think that played out exactly as we expected to. And Chase Brown was like somewhere in the middle on this one. And I think after these like few bad matchups, there might actually be like a weird window where I might try to buy back in on Chase, on Jamar Chase, and on Chase Brown. Because I think at that point, if he has another bad game or two, people are going to be just, running through the streets, screaming, so angry about what he's doing based on where they took him. And yet, because of that schedule, I think there might be a little bit of value if you can get him very, very cheap in a few weeks. So we'll come back to that. When we get to week 5, maybe we'll discuss where he's at and whether he is a buy low in some way, because the ceiling is not RB1 anymore. I'm just saying if he falls down to the RB3 range, are we getting value on a guy who could be an RB2 during some of those games in the second half of the season or when the schedule eases up? And I do think he could be.
Okay, let's get to the next one here because you just mentioned it. It's about Jamar Chase. Zach sends in an email, and again, he was not the only one, titled Bengals Turned Kitties. We got a lot of cat puns coming up here, so buckle in for that one. I am panicking around Jamar Chase after his disappointing production this week against Minnesota. He was a consensus top 3 pick, and he was expected to be quarterback proof. Is it worth shopping him around for another top-tier wide receiver if we can find someone else willing to take him based on name value? Yeah, this is where I kind of want to say it was the Vikings defense. Let's not forget that Jamar Chase did actually show himself to be quarterback proof the week before against Jacksonville. I think people are forgetting that Jake Browning played the vast majority of that game when Jamar Chase was excellent against Jacksonville. So this is one where I'm not willing to go coping corner on Jamar Chase. What is your level of panic around the Bengals' number 1 wide receiver?
I'm still only some panic on him. And like you said, we saw it 2 weeks ago, and then this week it was a tough matchup, and I am going to put a lot of stock in that. So not really panicking, but we are adjusting. It's just he's not the elite player that you drafted him to be anymore. You have to realize that those expectations are out the window, and now we're viewing him as a mid-range, but probably more of like a low-end wide receiver 1, I would say, and it's a lot more volume-based than it used to be. And yet still, because we know what Chase can do, and he's the kind of player that can get the ball anywhere on the field and turn it down for a home run, like he'll still come through more often than not, I think. Just that elite ceiling is totally out of the picture. So you take that into account, I guess. But for me, it's still just some panic because I think he's going to be a guy that you're going to be fine throwing in your lineup the rest of the way. And you just have to hope now that the rest of your lineup can pick up the slack.
Right. Like, it's coping corner for like Jamar Chase going to be worth the number 1 overall pick. Like, but we're not living in that world anymore. We're living in a world where, like we said, the expectation is low end wide receiver 1. He's going to have weeks. Oh my God. What using him like he's Tavon Austin? Oh my God. The tweets from this particular account are driving me crazy.
Reference. That's great.
Okay, come back from that.
Reset.
Okay,
yeah, we're okay.
Reset. We're okay. Anyways, we're readjusting our expectations to who Jamar Chase is, and like you're gonna have weeks like you got against Minnesota, especially because it's Minnesota. I mean, shoot, one of the wide receivers we're gonna talk about later had a dud week against the Minnesota Vikings. It just is what it is. The Bears looked the worst they have all season against this Vikings defense. So I want to give it a week here with Jamar Chase before I really start panicking about him, because I do think that there's a scenario where he can be totally just like a solid low-end wide receiver 1. And I would say, too, like this idea that you're going to shop him based on name value. Everybody else can see the game logs, and everybody else knows the quarterback's not out there. Like, unless there's some complete bozo like Patrick Starr living under a rock in your fantasy football league, then like you're not trading Jamar Chase for somebody that is in a similar like another top tier wide receiver. I guess that would be my opinion on that.
Remember when I asked you, I don't know when it was, a couple weeks ago, about like who's going to be the Wan'Dale Robinson PPR scam of this year?
Oh no.